Need for Speed was my first ever game on a PC. I was a kid back then, and Need for Speed 2 Special Edition used to be my most favorite game. I remember feeling amazed by it. The gameplay, the graphics, the sounds. The game got me hooked onto PC gaming in general and racing games in particular. It has been many years since then and I've grown up, but I've never stopped playing Need for Speed. In this video, I want to talk about the identity of Need for Speed and how over time it has lost its identity. I want to start by remembering some of my most favorite Need for Speed games. Hot Pursuit 2, Underground 1 and 2, and the original Most Wanted. These three games represent, to me, the qualities that made Need for Speed successful. Hot Pursuit 2 was a game which gave you beautiful roads to drive on and the most amazing cars to drive. It was a very simple game if you think about it, and one which epitomized the concept of arcade racing in the early history of Need for Speed. The original Underground and Underground 2 introduced the idea of customization to the franchise in a big way. The games struck a chord with the masses as their release overlapped with the growing popularity of the Fast and the Furious franchise. They added a new dimension to the series, and one which would eventually become integral for some of us. The original Most Wanted arguably had the most personality compared to any other game in the series. It had lots of characters, and despite only a few being highlighted, all of them gave flair to the game. The game brought back cops to the franchise, and I would argue that Most Wanted's cop chases are still enjoyable, even by today's standards. Over the years, though, Need for Speed has lost its once powerful public image. There were a series of games which were either not good, like for example The Run, or games which were not very well received despite being good, like Shift and Shift 2 Unleashed. The developers have tried to experiment with every possible thing to the extent that now even they don't know what to do with the games. Is Need for Speed still arcade? Is it a competitor to Forza Horizon? Is it still simple to play? I think that Need for Speed is supposed to be a single-player game first. With the franchise being outsourced to Criterion Games a few years ago, the focus has shifted over to multiplayer to the extent that Need for Speed 2015 required an always online connection even if you wanted to play the single-player story. The original Most Wanted was a personal game. People talked about the blacklist racers not just as numbers, but as real characters. That connection, that motivation, has been absent in the recent games. Most Wanted 2012 was high on social features, but it wasn't a personal game. It would have been better to call it a burnout game in the first place. It simply didn't deserve the Most Wanted title. The best modern Need for Speed game, I think, was the 2010 reboot of Hot Pursuit. It captured the essence of Hot Pursuit 2 and built upon that foundation. Need for Speed Rivals, however, derailed the evolution process largely thanks to its increased focus on vehicular combat and ultimately ended up feeling like an inferior game. Need for Speed is not about vehicular combat, it is about driving. Need for Speed Payback, the latest upcoming game, already seems like a misfit. The pompous, action-heavy feel and slow-motion crashes and chases already make me feel like it would be just another Need for Speed Rivals. The idea of barn finds has been lifted straight from Forza Horizon, which may or may not translate well into Need for Speed. However, customization is back, which is a good thing. Let us see how the final game plays out when it launches this November.